Welcome to the MVP Show. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/281. Before we chat with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge. I'm currently taking applications for 2021. This will be the fourth year I've run this program to help turbocharge your Microsoft business applications career, whichever part of it you specialize in. If you want to be mentored in the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, please go to nz365guy.com/mentor. Now, let's get on with the show. Today's MVP is from the United Kingdom. He was awarded MVP in December 2020. He's the chair of Star Diving Club in Guildford, Surrey. You can check him out on Twitter. His account is Linked365 and his blog, link365.blog. Welcome to the show, Carl Cookson.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. Tell us about Star Diving Club.
I am quite surprised you brought that up, I must admit. It's a platform diving club. My son is a platform diver, not currently because of the COVID restrictions. And I was basically the last man to step backwards effectively and got the job of chair. So do a lot of organising and discussion.
And who's your friend there with you today? The cat.
That was my phone, actually. That was I did put myself
way.
on no calls, but it's decided to overwrite itself. So I apologise for that.
I thought you were doing a shout out to the cat community for a minute. So, tell us, your recent MVP. How did that all come about?
Well, I think, apart from being part of your program this time last year, Mark, on the 90 Days Challenge, it was effectively finding my niche, understanding what I enjoyed doing and what part of the community I enjoyed. I've always been a community supporter and involved, but over the last year I've really understood where I can help and drive that through. So I'm assuming, I don't really know, you never know, do you, the reasons why, but the work I did with the XRM Toolbox is probably what pushed me over the edge. I certainly do a lot of blogging and a lot of organising of the Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour as well. So there's all lots of bits and pieces.
So this is the thing, right? I didn't realize that you were so productive with the XRM Toolbox. And I'm looking at your website and I can see you got a list of tools there. Tell us, walk us through them and how they came about.
Well, the first one is the org settings, which as when you work on enterprise clients, you tend to get involved in those intricacies of how Dynamics operates. And I basically worked out that there was no solution-free way of getting at those settings. There is a Sean McNay, I think his name is, Microsoft has got a solution that can tweak those settings, but there was no way of doing that within the XRM Toolbox. So it was my first foray into that grounds, and then that was basically the start of it, and I moved on to some of my pet peeves, effectively. The first being documenting anti-relationship diagrams so that you can get table structures and designs out, which is one of the things that we as consultants seem to have to do right at the end and get forgotten about right at the end. And then working through them, I've forgotten. Oh yeah, the other part of me that loves has to set up trial environments and demonstrations. I created the Mockaroo Data Munger, which is a shout out to Chris Huntingford, really in his name, but is using the Mockaroo API to generate data and build that into your system. And the last one, which was all mine, was the flow to vizio, which is taking Power Automate flows and converting them to a vizio diagram so that, again, you can document your solution.
I love it. So many tools I see is practical, really, heavily used around either configuring or documenting projects as well. Of course, that the the Mokru Data Monger. I think that is a fantastic name. I'm just like, it was years ago back in on-premise days, is that we used to often pick up projects that had failed in some format or required upgrading through the versions, and we'd never have had the client on our books before. And we had built a tool back then. It was pre, I wouldn't say it was pre-XRM Toolbox, because that's been around a good long time, but it was an executable that we could run, and it would scour and build out the ERD. It would build out an Excel file with all the kind of gotchas that we could expect, that were, let's say, non-standard customizations. It would extract all the JavaScript house where the DLLs and things were, and built it out. And you realize that, documentation or as-builts of solutions, particularly in Dynamics land, is so important. It's one of the oft-times the customer requires that as part of the handover of the project.
It is about documentation for me. There is, and the APIs are there and available. So anyone that's of that logical mindset certainly can make it available. And the XRM Toolbox basically gives you the ability to share your knowledge and your understanding and your tools to the wider community. So and it's credit to Tanguy and to Jonas and all those other guys that do a lot more than me, a lot better than I, to build that up to such a great tool set. And it's great that I've got involved with that and really put my own mark on it effectively, that I've got some tools that people want to use.
Yeah, very practical, right?
It is, it's just cutting down those hours. If I can save someone 10 minutes of their day, then that's enough for me.
It's a considerable amount, though. At looking at what those tools do, I know it's a lot more than 10 minutes it's often going to be saving.
Yeah, I can, the last time I had to do an ERD out of nothing, it does take an awful long while. And the same with, flows, and you just take screenshots with flows, and they're out of date. So anything I can do to help them, really.
365, how did you come up with the name? How did it come about? I see you've got that across your Twitter and your blog. How did it come about?
Well, it was to do with branding effectively, and trying to put my own brand on it. There is a Carl Cookson, several of them. I get some emails for Carl Cookson somewhere in California, so I didn't want to confuse things. And the idea originally was when I started this was linking up Dynamics to other wider things. One of my first blog posts was around Lewis and connecting Lewis up for email management, etc. And then I went on, one of the ones that I keep coming back to is the Alexa integration that has been done via Flow. So it was just a matter of reaching out to other areas and seeing what I could come up with, really. Trying to use Flow in particular in your everyday life and solving some problems. And I've used it to log temperature readings off my freezer, the Alexa thing as well, and all sorts of little things that just help me go about my life. And that's where it started, really. The idea that everything's not everything's not on-prem anymore, everything's not closed up anymore, everything is open and available to you, and it just takes a matter of a bit of effort to get that linking together.
So you mentioned Alexa. Are you pretty much into home automation fan, or are the things you've done there in that space more just proof of concepts, or is it something you're practically using?
Yeah, it is proof of concepts. There's a few that have gone further into production than others. There was one around the temperature monitor we've used in practical terms for my home personally, and other people's homes around the village, basically allowing them to monitor freezers. But there's also a few other bits that go above and beyond that to into production, into other clients.
Very cool. Very cool. How heavy are you involved in the community in the UK? I think I remember when I first met you. It was before I lived in the UK. I was on holiday coming through, and I remember being in a pub, and I'm pretty sure that's where I first met you. Some Microsoft event that had been run after work one day, and I just happened to be in London at the time, met you there. But you seem to be very hands-on in the community. You're a regular face with the virtual happy hour nowadays. What was that kind of journey into the community, and why does it play an important part in your career?
I started really the community when my job took me away from being Reading based to London based. So there was that whole community that is the after work socials that was non-existent in Reading, and it also came to a time when my children basically allowed me to have enough time and space to be able to do that sort of thing. They're now 16 and 14, so the idea of wanting anything from me apart from a Wi-Fi password and a bit of food is about all they do need. And being involved with the Power Platform Happy Hour that did exist, and we met up every month, etc. And then just basically getting involved in all the stuff that evolves around London, those evening outs that were evolving around London. And that led us, for me, basically, this time last year, we had this bright idea of turning that into a virtual event. And our first one was basically copying what you were doing, but trying to put that into a more of a virtual, because no one could get to these events. Not everyone could afford it. Not everyone could spare the time at work, etc., etc. And in February, roughly this time last year, we started that off, and then COVID happened, and everyone was doing virtual events, and so that the market got a little bit saturated, I think. And but we carried on all last year, and we basically come to a decision this year to change the format up a little, to meet more like the talk down the pub rather than 3 presentations like we did last year, and move it into a more of a chat discussion. So you were on the last one with Steve, and what a great event that was. Now the next one with the Mark Christie and Ian Connolly from Scottish Summit, as well as Aaron Randall from the South Coast Summit. And their topic obviously will be community events and how they've managed to build such a great presence in Glasgow. And hopefully Aaron will learn things to run his event in Southampton, hopefully this year, if we can all get down to Southampton this year. So it is an evolution. It's always an evolution, and doing things that you enjoy, and chatting, meeting people, and getting involved where you do enjoy it. And I'm thankful for everyone really to taking me under their wing. Alison and Chris and all the rest of them that have really helped me along that journey to and be part of that core team for the Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour, along with Lee, and move that forward effectively.
Yeah, so good, so good. You know what? Just as you're talking here, I've looked a bit more at your blog. It is a wealth of information, resource to the community. I'm just looking at your certification mind maps, which you've done in Freeplane there, and man, it's just fantastic from a study perspective to have all those laid out that you've obviously gone through. There's so many of them there. I'm really impressed. I see you become a Microsoft certified trainer as well. Why did you go after that?
Just because of a push from Avanade, really, from the idea of getting more folks skilled up, but it's also the idea that we're constantly giving over our time to do that sort of thing, and to have that recognition that you're doing the right thing in terms of Microsoft. It's the same as the MVP. It's just that recognition of why you're doing things, you're doing it right, the correct way, and we're basically pushing towards that as a goal. Really, I think everyone in life's got to have a goal, and plugging away at those things in those life changes helps you to sort of focus your practices and your understanding a bit.
Yeah,
I certainly do love doing the exams and learning from them. I think for me, the exams in particular were sometimes when you're on large projects, you seem to get very boxed in, and you just look at sales for a couple of years, for example, and you don't see what else is out there. So for me, the exams were part of making sure I'm keeping my skills fresh, as part of sharing what I know with the rest of the community.
Yeah, so good, so important, to keep your mind active, developing your skills, particularly in areas that are not your core, because you don't know if the next project you're on is going to need those skills.
Yeah, I had that recently. I've done a marketing project recently with very little understanding of what the marketing product does, and what it's capable of, and being thrown in the deep end, realizes that I should have taken the plunge and taken that exam 6 to 9 months ago when I had the opportunity. I think it would have held me in better stead, but I've passed it now, so at least I've done it. And it's all just tables and fields effectively, really, but a bit too much, a bit more to it in sometimes.
Yeah, so it's no longer entities and columns.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me, how did you become an MVP? Do you know who nominated you? How did you actually go through that process? What was involved in the process?
Yeah, it was Keith Watling that nominated me. He nominated me in September last year, I think. And I just took a lot of guidance from people that have been through it recently, like Trisha and Alison, to understand what was required, and how much detail to put in there, and all those sort of things. And taking guidance from someone like Chris Huntingford in terms of building that list. Keep building that list effectively. If you're interested, make sure you're recording everything you're doing, and even the simple things, to show your variety of what you're doing rather than just your focus area. And they helped me guide it through. And it was December I got it. It was a very pleasant surprise. I think there might have been a few people that knew before me, not to name any names, but that couldn't keep their mouth shut. But it was a very pleasant surprise that happened on the day. And
fantastic! What a great Christmas present.
Yeah, and since then I've just been living the dream effectively, coping with all the information that comes with you and all the events that come with it, and trying to keep your head above water. And I think my blogging has certainly suffered, but now I'm sort of got to a point where I'm picking and choosing what I do rather than thinking I have to do things for doing things' sake, and ensuring that I'm keeping enjoying doing what I'm doing. And that's focusing on my tools, which tends to take a lot longer to get to an end point. Keeping going with the community things that I'm on and around and doing, like Scottish Summit and the virtual happy hour, and doing things that I love, because I know that there's an awful lot other stuff that I'm going to get involved with. It is a journey, and I'm thankful I'm on it.
Yeah, totally awesome. What, any kind of surprises on becoming an MVP? Like, some people say the deluge of information that you now you tap into. What, in any other, I mean, I know it's only been a couple of months, but any kind of key or any highlights for you?
Yeah, I think for me it's just the rapid turnaround of, if you've got a problem, they're there, from the product team to whoever. There's been a few occasions where you just realise how quick they can react when they do, and that's not putting down on their support, but I think it's just that instant reaction that I've got from in certain places that has really helped, and firmed up the advice I give to clients. It's getting them involved in client issues and understanding that, whereas I would have to step through the support process and escalate via other channels, that the MVP channel seems to be a very direct one.
Yeah,
I'm
so good, so good
at times.
Yeah, so good. Okay, you ready for some quick fire questions as we wrap this thing up?
Sure.
Okay, when you were younger, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Played for Liverpool Football Club.
Nice, nice.
Get very far in that dream, I must admit. Too many pork pies, definitely.
What's your favourite quote?
Standing on the shoulders of giants. I don't know whether that's a quote. It is a bit of a quote in an Oasis lyric, isn't it? But I think that really, for me, that's the one that comes to mind straight away, is that, you've got to raise other people up and understand what other people have been through to get you where you are now.
Yeah, so good. If you could meet a historical figure, who would you choose and why?
It's very similar to a question we have at the Bespoke Badger, but probably a bit politer. Martin Luther King, I think. It's probably a bit cliche, but I'm always overwhelmed by the how little time has passed since those events, and it always surprises me that we have come a long way, but that was so close. And to really understand what really happened back then compared to what the politics and the papers have told us is happened, I think would be good.
Yeah, awesome. What's your worst habit?
Biting my nails.
Fair call, fair call. Would you rather save money or time?
Time.
Yeah, totally agree. And finally here, what do you regret not doing when you were younger?
My biggest regret, and I've used it a lot, is when Microsoft first came out with Dynamics 1.2 or 3, around that time, that I was working for a consultancy that was heavily invested in Pivotal CRM.
Yeah, I saw that.
And at the time, I was offered to get retrained and move into that product, to the new shiny Dynamics product. And I basically said, well, that's not going to last. It's rubbish. It didn't have all the complexities that Pivotal had at the time. It didn't have the ability to change everything that you can now. And I just thought it was just a no-brainer. There's no way that's going to last. And considering that it's taken me 10 years to get back to Microsoft effectively, to where we are now, I think that's probably understanding what could have been effectively at that point.
Yeah, very interesting. I always, back in those days, I'd do presentations from time to time. And I remember one of the ones I did was I'd get questioned, why are you backing Microsoft? Why are you, staking your career on this? I remember even a chappie that was judging my company for an award, a business award, said, aren't you all your eggs in one basket? And I just went through and said, well, judge it by history, as in, when I look at it, Microsoft weren't first with the spreadsheet, but they won the spreadsheet category. They weren't first with the word processor, right? There were things like WordPerfect and whatnot out there, but they won that game. They weren't first with, Xbox in the console desktop space, but, arguably they're winning that space against the PS2. And I went over, I don't know, about 10 different products, and I said, when Microsoft commits to a space, they tend to play the long game, not the quick win. And that's what I'm playing for with, of course, CRM back then. And I tell you what, I'm 17, 18 years now in the space just around BizApps, and I tell you, not regretted it once. It was a right call to make, and the investment has been fantastic,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of investment, a lot of marketing, and they've done really well for a product that had such a checkered introduction in history, that they've now got it right effectively, and you can see that they're still investing, and I think that's a great place to be, and it's certainly something to stick with going forward.
Yeah, I love it. Carl, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem,
as I said before, check out Linked 365 if you want a plethora of XRM tools that can make your jobs simpler, If you want to look at the certification mind maps and see, if you're planning on sitting a certification, some great prep tools there. And then just the wealth of information across his blog. Well worth it. Thanks, Cookie, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future sometime.
Thank you, Mark. Hope to see you soon.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP, Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show, please like and subscribe in your favorite podcast player. If you want to leave a review, go to nz365guy.com/review. Otherwise, see you next time.